It is Wednesday afternoon, January 17th. We're picking up in Bereshit in Genesis 31. We're technically at about verse 20, but just quick review. What's going on in this chapter is the attitude of Laban and his sons toward Yaakov, toward Jacob, has changed. Jacob's been flourishing. His flocks have been growing. Laban's have grown some, but not exponentially the way he would expect, and not the way that he had happened in the past. I sound very tinny suddenly, whatever you just did.
I just turned it up some.
Yeah, I would reverse some of that, thank you. Laban was receiving the blessing of the Lord on Yaakov, Jacob, who was working for him. Now that Jacob is supposed to be able to build up his house, he has set it up in such a way that it's up to God entirely to bless him or not. He did not put himself into a strong position to receive the best from Laban. He had a right to even ask for a start from Laban. Laban also owed his daughters the dowry that was to them, which was Jacob's labor. And he wasn't giving any of that. God saw that. God knew that for 14 years this man has worked for next to nothing. He got his wife out of it, but it is time now that he should be able to build his own household. And Jacob set it up to receive the spotted, the speckled, the least valued out of the flock. And they were set aside so that the ones that he started with that were not his but were Laban's would be the ones that most likely would produce the solid colors, not the speckled and spotted. So if speckled and spotted came out, it would be because God had done it. And we know it in chapter 31 and verse 12, in the dream that God showed Yaakov what was going on, he did make it clear that he was bringing the strong ones to reproduce, and he was causing their reproduction to be spotted and speckled because he was blessing Yaakov. So Yaakov's growing. Laban keeps changing his wages. Every time it was going good for Jacob, Laban would try to get that for himself, so he'd change it, and God would just change it along with him, and Jacob kept being blessed. So
a lot of war zone.
yeah. So now we've got Jacob with a large flock, with flocks, I should say. He's got camels and donkeys, and he's hired servants, and he's got a lot now that is his. And the sons of Laban, seeing their father's flocks not flourishing the same, and realizing, I'm sure also, that their future is what is in that, they're getting jealous. And so Jacob wisely sees, you know what, this isn't a good environment. Maybe I shouldn't stay here. At the time that God's working on his environment, God's touching his heart, and then God is also speaking to him and reminding him, you're to return home. You were never here permanently. You were to go, get your wife. You were to go back. God promised that he would take him safely and bring him home safely. So he reminds Yaakov of the vow that Yaakov made at Beit El, the house of God, when he went out on his way to Padan Aram, when he had that vision of the ladder, the angels ascending and descending. We saw that the ladder spoke very clearly of Yeshua. It spoke far more volume, but absolutely showed Jacob that it's God who is orchestrating, and that God would protect him, take him, bless him, and bring him back. So he reminded Yaakov of that and basically said, it's time to go home. So Yaakov called his wives out to the field where they could talk freely, make sure that they would be willing to go with him, because now they're going to be leaving their father. They're going to be leaving the only home they've ever known. And they very quickly let him know that they are in total agreement with Jacob. They see that their fathers cheated them as well as their husband, and they are in one accord to go back to, or to go with Jacob back to his homeland, where they will live out their days. And so Jacob puts the little ones, because they've got 11 sons, remember, and the youngest is very young. So he puts them on animals for transport. You know, he makes it easy for them to be able to go, and he sets out. When he left, and I believe we've got that ahead of time, that when he left Laban had gone out to shear his sheep. He'd gone out, would be gone for 3 days. Jacob thought, this is a good time to leave. You know, I don't need a showdown here. I don't need confrontation. I don't need war. I don't need a battle over what's mine and me taking mine. So they pack up, and in the still of the night quote, as we would say, he sets out and sets for, puts his face toward the land of Canaan, what we'll call the land of Israel in the future. He's headed back to his father's house. And I think that pretty well catches us up to where we're going to be picking up today. One more point that I need to bring out that I had not brought out is, we'll pick up at, I guess before 21 I'm looking. Yeah, I'm going to start reading from 19 on, because that's the point I forgot to bring up. When Laban, this is verse 19 of chapter 31. When Laban, had gone to shear his flock, then Rachel stole the household idols that were her father's. And Yaakov deceived Laban, the Aramean, by not telling him that he was fleeing. Okay, those 2 points. Rachel grabbed the household gods. She's taking them with her. And Yaakov is not telling Laban, I'm leaving. Okay, question?
I just, probably off the track, but why was Jacob taking care of his Laban's sheep? Why wasn't his sons doing that?
The sons probably were taking care of the small flock of speckled and spotted and all that when Jacob and Laban made the deal together, Jacob was starting with nothing. He would only get the newborn that were spotted, speckled. And so we were told that Laban took his spotted and speckled and he put them away from the others,
right.
And the sons were taking care of them. And then Laban's flock of the better, the healthier, the stronger, and the favorable were still to be taken care of by Jacob, who would have a chance out of that to get offspring that would be his.
But what was Jacob doing the 14 years he was working for his
Taking
two
care of
wives?
all of them.
Okay, so why wasn't his Laban's sons doing that?
They may have been helping also, but they definitely took Jacob in as labor, as, you're to work for us. He was to work for his wife. And then when he got fooled, he had to work another 7 years for his wife. So it was an agreement, and Jacob was willing. Remember, Rachel was even taking care of the sheep when Jacob showed up on the picture. You know, she was out with the flock and came in with them. So probably all in the household were, but I imagine Laban's sons, and I'm reading into this, the scripture doesn't say it, but I imagine they were pampered. I imagine they were, well, you're the sons, he's the hired help. Let him, let him do what we've hired him to do. But because God's blessing was on him, it was flourishing.
And on top of that, he was obedient when it come to, to work for his wives, so he was willing to do whatever with obedience.
Yes. And remember, one could do that for a dowry. It wasn't totally unheard of to do something when you didn't have something tangible to give. Then you could give yourself, your labor, whatever, for the wife. That was known to happen. It just got taken advantage of in this case.
So then Jacob was taking care of his sheep and Laban's sheep at the same time?
By the end of this time when he's leaving, yes.
Because remember, at first, Jacob didn't have any sheep until...
Right, till the offspring came out of them. That's what I tried to make clear, is when Jacob and Laban made the deal, you got Laban's solid sheep, and Jacob's going to take care of them, but they're all Laban's. You've got Laban's spotted sheep, and the sons are going to be taking care of them, but that's all separated so that Jacob couldn't sneak them in because they were the colors that were going to be his.
He was supposed to go through and pick out the spotted and the striped. And
Jacob said he'd go through and separate, but Laban did it.
Laban took them in.
Laban took them.
And
they weren't to be Jacob's, but Laban didn't. When you don't deal right with people, you don't trust people to deal right. So Laban knew he would have done something sneaky, so he didn't trust Jacob not to do something sneaky. And so, because that would be Jacob's wage, he thought, well, Jacob will sneak some of my spotted and speckled, and he'll say, they're new and they're his. Well,
I thought that's what he was supposed to do, was go through and pick them
not
out.
for himself, just to separate them so that he would be taking care of the best for Laban and help Laban build up. And God did bless. They did have offspring. Not all were spotted and speckled. So Laban's flocks grew some, but they didn't grow like Jacob's did because the blessing of the Lord was on Jacob.
Okay.
One thing.
Go ahead, because she's still
I
processing.
noticed
Go ahead.
They can have babies twice a year. You said something like that.
The mating season, the popular time, like we say, we often have more kittens in the spring. Okay, the common mating times for the flocks were twice a year, and it does say that Laban changed Jacob's wages 10 times, and he'd worked 6 full years. Well, if it's twice a year, that's 5 years full time. He's in that 6th year that Laban changed it every time because, oh, okay, we're getting more spotted and speckled. They're going to you. Now the spotted and speckled are going to be mine. Well, then the sheep start producing the solid colors. So Jacob kept growing no matter what Laban did.
Didn't he start right from his wives changing his wages?
Oh, yes. Oh,
So-
yes. Oh, yes. He was deceitful from the beginning. He was in it for himself. He didn't have, he wasn't obedient to the Lord. Laban was on the throne. I'm sorry, Loretta? Fortitude, okay. Yes, but God saw. And that should encourage any of us. You may be in a situation where you know you're being taken advantage of, but if God is keeping you there and blessing you in it, then you never hear Jacob complain. He continued to do. I mean, he worked 7 years for Rachel and he got Leah. And he said, I'll work 7 more years. You know, he didn't say, this isn't fair, and he didn't throw a hissy fit, and he didn't, I'm going home.
He didn't have another one, another daughter.
Another daughter.
21 years.
Yeah, well, God had it ordained and allowed it to go in the way it did for his purposes. So, and Leah, we are blessed that through her came the majority of the tribes of Israel. We have to realize that. So, she has a lot to be thankful for. She produced the son that's the line to the throne, Judah, and the line to the throne comes through his tribe.
Can I ask you one question? Why would Rachel steal?
We will talk about that. Why would Rachel steal? In fact, we did at the end of class, but I will review it. Because it's also important to today's class too. Can you give me a paper towel just because I don't want to ruin everything that I just got with? Sorry folks, this is the human side. And I bumped my glass when I went to put it back. Maybe, if I put it out there then I'll ruin all my papers. Thank you. It wasn't much, but these I give out and I don't want them ruined. So just a quick wipe up and forgive me, sorry. This is what happens when you Zoom in a living room. Okay, thank you. So, why did Rachel steal those gods? Okay, one of the reasons that it could have been, let me get, I think I've got everything I want right here. Yeah, okay. One of the reasons that can be, and I'm going to give you several reasons to tell you what I think, but I'll give you several reasons. One is that the idols were used to gain information. Satan is the one that's working through idolatry. Okay? Any idol is stone, wood, straw, whatever. It doesn't have ears to hear, eyes to see. It doesn't have any ability. Like the story I told you before, that the tribe, that the person, the family that made the idols for that tribe, even himself realized, if my hand can carve this idol, my hand's stronger than this idol. who made my hand? And it was what led him on the road to when he did here, receive the Lord as his Savior. These idols could not do, but Satan could work through them. We see that in witchcraft today. We see it in the dark side. We see it, when Satan gives information and help to those who are worshiping, in essence, him. Because if you're bowing down to an idol, you're bowing down to Satan, to the God who is behind that idol. So they did believe that they could get divinations, is what they called it, that they could get information. And we do know that sometimes Satan's been able to give information. Nothing future. He can't foretell the future other than what he can read in Scripture like we can. But he could make it look like that idol had given them wisdom to deal with their situation. Okay, so that could be one reason that Rachel was afraid those idols, as Laban would turn to them, they would let Laban know where to come find them, that it would help him find them. So she didn't want him to have that ability, that insight that would help their dad come after them. That's one reason. That's, in my mind, the least. Okay, because I don't see Rachel put faith in those gods, in the idols. She wasn't worshiping them, and she doesn't use them. We don't see that. A second reason that I think is a lot more likely is through archaeology, through excavations that have been done in North Mesopotamia, in the area that we're talking about, Padanaram, the Syrian area, that what was called the Syrian area of that day, that there were rules of how they lived. They've been able to understand and develop some of this. We get our Hammurabi laws passed down to us from that. This is what they considered the law of the land. It was considered that if a son-in-law had his father-in-law's gods, that was equal to being like the title deed to the property. That was saying what was the father-in-law's was to be passed to that son-in-law. This would happen especially when a father only had daughters. So he was embracing the sons-in-law as if they were his very own. So Rachel, knowing her father, knowing he's going to, he might come and try to say, hey, this is mine, you've taken my things, when Jacob didn't. Jacob did not leave Padanaram with anything that didn't belong to him. The flocks he took were his. The wives were his. The children were his. Okay, so he's not taking anything he shouldn't, but she knew her dad would come along, and if he did catch up, he'd be saying, the flocks are mine. This all belongs to me. And by virtue of Jacob having those idols, it would show that, no, there has been a pass down here. This was given in the right way to Jacob. It's he's the principal heir of this. Now, that's a likely scenario. But there's also another. What was the third? Maybe there were only two. I thought I had a third, and it's not even in my mind right now, so maybe that's it. Okay, so either she doesn't want her father to inquire of them to get information, or she's saying that this was proof that her husband had the right. I tend to think it's more the right way than the wrong way. We're even going to see what God does about these idols that have been brought in. Okay, we're not going to see that he condemned in the way that some might expect. So I'm still thinking there's a third, and I just can't pull it out. Maybe there's only two. I'm looking through my notes real fast. If it comes, then I will bring it out later.
I understand now. I didn't know they were using those kind of stones as like with a witchcraft,
Yes, like with, right, yeah. And we saw that paganism that was in there, we saw from Laban comes a grandson by the name of Balaam, who is the one who tries to curse Israel, and God doesn't let him. So we see, and he even said, Balaam himself told Balak, the king that hired him to curse Israel, he said, I can only say what God lets me say. So when he opened his mouth, the blessing came out, and Balak got upset about it. He said, hey, I told you, I can only say what God lets me say. So obviously, there was play in there. There was something going on, it wasn't just nothing. And we see that in the evil side the dark side of in witchcraft, in Satan worship, and all of that today. Does Satan have power? Yes. Does it equal God's? No. He's never God's equal and opposite. Never. Not in any way, shape, form, matter, nothing. But he does counterfeit, and he does a lot. He can cause somebody to flourish and do well in evil. So God's still in control. God allows for a purpose that we don't necessarily see. But I will leave it at that, and if I get that third reason, I'll pull it out to you. By the way, the excavations where they got that information, they're called the Tablets of Nuzi, N-U-Z-I, and it was from the 15th century BC that these tablets have been discovered, and they've been able to interpret what they were meaning, and they were what showed that title deeds to the property often were, these idols were like a written title deed today. Yes, Rowena?
A third reason could be it's like a good luck charm. Especially Rachel had like infertility problems, and some of the idols were like gods of fertility. So it could be that she took it, just for good luck for her own fertility or for their travels.
Okay. She could have looked at them that way. We don't know. Because they definitely were looked on as that way. The goddess of fertility was one of the big gods that gets worshipped constantly. I was even hearing something recently that they uncovered that shows this goddess of fertility. If you don't know, Google. I'm not going to go there. But yeah, good point. So, okay, so let's see what happens. Do those idols help? Do they lead Laban to where Yaakov and his two wives and their children are? What happens? Because if you do know the story, you do know there is a showdown. There is a meeting. So, Rachel's taken the gods, the idols that were in her father's house, and I'm trying to find the right verse. There we go. Okay, so Laban's off shearing his flock. Rachel's stolen the idols. Yaakov is, and quote, deceiving Laban. I don't like that word there. I think that's too strong of a word. He's just simply not, he's taking advantage of the time. This is a good time to get out of here, okay? But it says he's deceiving Laban, the heir man, by not telling him that he was fleeing. We're going to find out why he did that by his own words as we move on. So, verse 21, so he, Jacob, fled with all that he had, and he arose and crossed, and you may have just the river. Some translations have the Euphrates River. It is the river that would have been crossed, so no problem there. It's just if a scribe put in more information as it was known or not. He set his face toward the hill country of Gilead. Okay, now, the hill country of Gilead is where we're headed. That is in the land of Canaan. Roger, I'm going to ask you to put up the two, one's a map. Well, they're both maps in a sense, just different, to show where that area is, because I think it helps us to have a visual. So here's your first one. If you know the land of Israel today, you can see that the outline of it here. There we go, as soon as it gets it out of the way. Actually, we need you to shrink it a little or show it goes down, because we've just got the start of it. What's highlighted in yellow there, very good, there you go. If you see written vertically instead of horizontally is the word Gilead. Okay. Yes, thank you, Roger. Okay, now that's because the mountain ranges, the hill country, all of that was called Gilead. It's not a city, it's a range, a territory, an area. Whoops, a little too big. There we go, okay. They're going to be coming from the east, so they're coming over this way, that in my, from right to left as I look at the map, okay? I think you all know where east is on the map. Because we're going to talk about it, I think the next picture shows, go ahead to the next one, and it shows, there you go. Okay, you can see Gilead now written almost in the middle. Roger's just put his arrow right past it. There you go. Ignore that it says the Amorites. Those were the enemies that were there in a later period of time. We're talking a little earlier right now, but the layout of the land is the same. Gilead is the mountain range through there. Look right below the word Amorites, below Gilead, and you see Jabbok River or Yabok River. Okay, that's the river we're going to talk about today. It's not the Euphrates. This is the river that he's going to cross. Hopefully we get to that by the end of class today. Okay, so I'm hoping that since we're going to, I'm showing it to you now. But again, the Euphrates is off the map. If you're facing the map on the right, north, east, you know, that direction is Euphrates, and they're coming all the way across to Gilead. Okay, east of the Jordan River. Show them the Jordan River. There you go. The Jordan River connects the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea. The Sea of Galilee is that little bit of blue above the R in river, for river, Jordan River, right by Amorites. Go up, the little, up.
You're talking about this, right?
I'm talking about the Sea of Galilee, right there, perfect. Sea of Galilee, okay, is right there. The line that comes down from the Sea of Galilee is the Jordan River. It empties into the Dead Sea, okay? So just follow that line down. It's a little hard to see, there you go, because the blue is light. Now you gotta go down because you can't see the Dead Sea.
Yeah.
But that main little blob is the Sea of Galilee, is unnamed in this map. It's hard to get a map to show everything you want, okay?
Yeah.
When you're showing it, it's good.
Okay, and I hope I'm being clear. That's why the Dead Sea's dead, folks, is because the minerals, the deposits, everything come down through that river are deposited into the Dead Sea, and there's no outlet. So it all comes in. It just keeps coming in, it just keeps coming in, and it's more mineral than anything else, and it doesn't allow, life needs fresh water. And it needs an in and an out, you know. And somebody even said, we need to not take our blessings in and hold them. We need to pass them through so that we keep in a good, fresh way of living also, keep God's blessings flowing. But anyway, that's a sidetrack. So the Jabbok River you can see real good now. That's what Jacob's going to, let me just say it in case if we don't get to it because I'm babbling too much. When Jacob sends all of his family over the river and he stays alone that night, that's the river that they crossed over, okay? And I'm saying it in English so you can follow me, Jabbok, okay? That's the river we're talking about at that point. Right now, they've left Euphrates. They've traveled to the hill country of Gilead. The whole mountain range is about 6 miles long and about 20 miles wide. That's the area that's called the mountains of, or the hill country of Gilead. Its northern point, when you're first coming into Gilead from the north of it, that's 300 miles from Haran. And remember, Haran was where Abraham stopped, and he was there for a time before he went on into Israel. Haran is way over toward the Mesopotamian area. So Yaakov, Rachel, Leah, and 11 children plus flocks, camels, donkeys, servants. They're traveling about 300 miles, okay? That would take at least 10 days because probably even more than that. 10 days would mean they're doing about 30 miles a day, but it could be that where Yaakov and the daughters started out was not right in Laban's house, but out in the fields where they'd been taking care of the flocks, and they just picked up and moved. Didn't go back to Laban's house, didn't go back and say goodbye. They just went, okay?
No clothes, no nothing. They just...
Well, they would have had, you know, they lived like Bedouins. They would have had tents out there because they'd be moving those flocks to where there's grass to eat and, you know, to water them. You know, they would be moving. So it's not like we live in one house and we stay here and we go do our work out there. No, they didn't go home every night to the house. They would have their tents, they would have, you know, what mattered to them. And I'm sure that as far as personal, it was light. You know, they wouldn't have a whole closet of clothes like, I won't say who has today. They would have had sufficient though, and they would have been able to take care of themselves because they're used to living that type of a lifestyle. So they've been gone at least, I'm going to say at least 10 days to hit the Gilead mountain range. Now remember, Lavan is gone 3 days out taking care of his sheep. So that tells you he's 3 days journey from his home to get to the sheep that he's having to share. Okay, that's, we have to think broader and wider than what we're accustomed to thinking. We're city folk. Okay, unless you grew up in an area that's different. So, okay, so verse 21 has told us that he's gotten to the hill country of Gilead. Now, put him on hold there, because verse 22 takes us back to what's happening with Laban. In verse 22, when it was told Laban on the third day that Yaakov had fled, so he probably was kind of pushing his family to go as quick as they could. Then Laban took his kinsmen with him, and he pursued him a distance of 7 days' journey. So there's your 10 days. Laban doesn't find out for 3 days, and then it takes him a full week to catch up. Okay? And he's flying faster. He would have been able to move faster than Jacob with all of his entourage would have been able to do.
Yes, with all his kids and family, how can you travel that quick?
It wouldn't be real quick. I think it's amazing to say that they did, what did I say, 30 miles in a day? Yeah. A 7 day's journey is considered 20 miles. That's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. Now you have to remember again, they didn't have couch potato lives. They were used to they were used to being out in the elements. I'm sure that the little ones weren't walking that kind of distance. They were on the camels or the donkeys, or maybe they had some sort of wagons that they could put the kids in. When the kids had all that energy, they could run around while they're going, and then when they were tired, they could be, taken care of. However it was, we know that it's about 10 days before Laban catches up with them, and they are in the hill country. So they've managed to cross that, maybe just even by God's help. He must have made the weather good. He must have given them strength and energy, and they were able to just keep moving forward. So Laban takes with him his kinsmen. That's his brethren, or that's his relatives. It doesn't necessarily mean brothers. It could have been his sons, unless they stayed home to take care of the flocks. They could have stayed behind, but he took people with him that would have been favorable to him. And he's traveling faster than Jacob would have been able to, and we see that he's caught up with him now. I'm sidetracked as I saw my note. Don't forget, third day in Scripture is very interesting. Here we have that Laban was away for 3 days. We see positive that happened on 3 days. We see negatives that happen. For instance, the plague of darkness in Egypt lasted for 3 days. So just an interesting side note. Do a study sometime. You'll find it very fascinating. So,
can you explain 24? That's really
here we go. Here we go. I think we're about ready for verse 24. It does say, let me finish 23, that the distance, he'd gone for 7 days' journey, and he overtook him in the hill country of Gilead. So he has caught up with him. Now, again, we have to think how this is happening. Laban wasn't in a car, and he didn't drive up in that car to the doorstep of Jacob and have a confrontation suddenly, face to face. He didn't walk into his place of business or something like that. I think what must have happened is, as Laban was pursuing, and he knew where to go. He knew Jacob was headed home. Okay, where else is Jacob going to go? So he knew where to go. He's headed for the land of Canaan, and probably in his kinsmen and those who were with him, he'd send out scouts. And probably as they were coming toward the end of a day, those scouts saw, maybe because it's hill country, maybe Jacob's down in kind of one of the valley-like with his he's not going to be able to hide, folks. He's got 11 children, 2 wives, and all the flocks and everything else we've been talking about. So I can see that some of Laban's scouts could have looked out and saw them and saw that they were kind of settled there at the moment. And so they go back and they report to Laban, hey, we've caught up. We know right where they are. And Laban's intent now is the next morning, I'll go after them. Okay, I think that has to be behind the scenes, because what we have here is that he catches up with him. You're going to have to hold on to why I'm saying there's a night in between. It will come here in a moment, okay? So, Laban catches up with him in verse 26 and says to Yaakov, What have you done by deceiving me, by carrying away my daughters like captives of the sword? Okay, did I skip a verse?
Yeah,
I
24.
did. I knew I needed that in there. Forgive me, and it's the verse Loretta even asked for. I knew we had a problem here. Sorry. So he overtakes him in 23, but in 24, why I said there has to be a little bit of time in between there is it says God came to Lavan, the Aramean. Mine says where he's from, put on Aram, in a dream of the night, and said to him, and remember, God has spoken to those who have no, that he spoke when Abraham went down into Egypt. He told the king, don't you touch Sarah, she's his wife. God's talked to those who are not his children. He's made it very clear to them, and often in a dream. We've seen that in the book of Genesis already. So it doesn't mean that Laban has a relationship with God. That's what I'm trying to say. But God speaks to him in a dream that night and says, be careful that you do not speak to Jacob, Yaakov, either good or bad. Take heed, hello, alert, listen to me. And then when the scripture uses opposites like this, very frequently when it's used in scripture, it's meaning a totality. In essence, he wasn't to say anything to Jacob. He wasn't to talk to Jacob about his leaving and the way he left. He was supposed to just, is hands off. You don't speak good to him, you don't speak evil to him, you leave him alone. That's basically what God said. Don't touch my Jacob. Now, was Laban's intent so evil that God pulls him up short? Because maybe Laban, and I'm reading in, I'm not telling you it says it, but maybe he would have even gone to the point of killing Jacob and dragging his daughters and all that belonged to them back to Paddan-aram, back to his home. He at least would have gone after Jacob's flocks. There's absolutely no way he was doing this for nothing. Remember, they were jealous of Jacob. They want what he has. So at the very least, Laban would have been there to cart everything off and leave Jacob with nothing. At the worst, maybe his intent was even to take Jacob's life. God knew his intent. God knew it was evil, and God told him, don't, beware. You're going to be dealing with me, is basically what God's saying, if you take him out. So he is keeping his promise to Yaakov. He promised Yaakov, I will bring you safely. I will take you safely. I will bring you back home safely. And that was in chapter 28, verse 15, if you want to refresh your mind with it again. So God promised Yaakov protection, and here it is in living color, okay? So now with that in mind, knowing that the last night before Laban is going to be face-to-face with Jacob, God has warned him, don't touch my Jacob. Okay, so verse 25, he catches up with him, and I think I have done everything now, up to that. Okay, so Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country. That means they were stopped. They would have to stop. They would have to sleep. They'd have to get refreshments. They'd have to load up water again from a source, be able to move on. And that's when Laban, with his kinsmen, those who with them, were able to catch up in the hill country of Gilead. We've said that, so verse 26, I'm ready for it now. Then Laban said to Yaakov, what have you done by deceiving me, carrying away my daughters like captives of the sword, like the prisoners of war? You've taken my daughters. They weren't willing to go. You forced them to go. Now, that's not true, but that's the premise that Laban's starting on. Hey, what are you doing taking my daughters this way? Now, I remind you, how much love had he shown to his daughters? Okay?
None.
None. You really think a loving father puts Leah in the position that he did? Whether it was with her consent or against her consent, he did it. He snuck her in. I don't think that was right or fair to her, regardless of Rachel, who it totally was wrong to. Laban didn't show any kind of love or care except to use his daughters for his good. Hey, I've had 7 years free labor. And I'm sure he worked Jacob to death. I am sure that Jacob worked very hard, but he was so in love, he didn't know how miserable he was. So he was willing to take on another 7 years. So even though it's not true, he says it, and then he even makes the lie a little bit bigger. You know how the fish keeps getting bigger and bigger, the one that got away? Well, then Laban says, you've taken them against their will, like they were captives. Why did you flee secretly and deceive me, did not tell me, so I might have sent you away with joy, with songs, with timbrel, with life. I would have given you, that's verse 27. Laban saying, I would have given you a going away party. We could have sent you off with gifts to go with, and we could have made merry, and we could have had a good last hurrah and sent you away in a good way. Yeah, and all of you who believe that, I don't see any hands going up, okay? But that's what he's trying to say. Now, I think, in fairness to Laban, he's frustrated right now. He had evil intentions against Jacob, and he can't even say that because God said, don't you speak good or evil to Jacob. So he ends up lying about what he was about to do, and he's going to make this hypocritical speech. He goes on, he says, you didn't even allow me to kiss my sons, that's his grandsons, and my daughters, as if this is what really mattered to him. He hasn't shown that kind of love to them, in my opinion, but then he says, now you Jacob, you have done foolishly, okay? He's going to boast now. You did this foolish thing, but, verse 29, it's in my power to do you harm. Really? Who just called him up short and told him, don't you harm a hair on his head? But he also, at the same time, quickly isn't going to want them to think that's his intent. So quickly, he's going to move away from that boast, and he's going to tell them about the dream. And in view of that dream, they should realize everything he's saying is empty threats. He can't touch Jacob because God's not going to let him. So he's going to change the subject real quick. Oh, I could have harmed you. That's what I could have done because you've done foolish with me. I could have harmed you. Oh, but let me tell you about my dream. And then he's going to take it off in another direction. Okay, so it was in his power to do harm, but the God of, and notice, your father. He doesn't claim God. He doesn't say, my God. The God of your father spoke to me last night saying, be careful not to speak either good or bad to Yaakov, to Jacob. Okay, so he admits that part, and he's saying that's the only reason why I'm not harming you, which in essence is true. God holding him back is what was keeping him from bringing harm to Jacob. But then he goes on, and with this change in his, he's going to put the spotlight on something else. Verse 30. Now, you have indeed gone away because you long greatly for your father's house. I get it, Jacob. You're longing to go home. I get it. That's why you've done this. You've done this because your heart cried out to you to go home. But why did you steal my gods? Okay. If you have the Old English, you have the woods needs be gone or indeed gone away. Basically, you found it necessary to go. That's what that's trying to say. And now he's trying to justify his actions. I'm here because you stole my gods. Really? Well, number one, what kind of power do these gods have if they can be stolen? That's my question. But number two, let me also say to you, he could have replaced those idols that were taken cheaper than what it cost him in pursuit. So this is all camouflage, this is all smokescreen, this is not, if he didn't have him, his life's over. No, not by any means, okay? I think we're ready for verse 31. Jacob replies to Laban, this is why I left without telling you, because I was afraid, for I thought you would take your daughters from me by force. Did he have a right to think that way?
Yep.
Absolutely. That's Laban's character, sure. He was afraid that at best there would be a knockdown, drag-out fight. There would be bad words, bad feelings. It would be a bad scene, damage to everybody. and they go off that way, or I can just slip away quietly when Lavan's not on his watch, and I don't have to face that, put my wives through that, put the grandchildren through that. He was afraid it would be a bad scene if he had done it openly and with a plan that Lavan could have attacked. Okay, so he answers honestly of the reason why he did. But now he's not aware that Rachel has stolen the gods. This is all news to him. So verse 32, he says, the one with whom you find your gods shall not live. He's sentencing the one who stole the gods to death. He's saying that was wrong. Punishment for stealing is death. This one shall not live. In the presence of our kinsmen, in the presence of those you brought with you, those brethren, point out what is yours among my belongings and have it. Take it for yourself. So basically, he's giving Lavan carte blanche. Go through my properties here. Go through the tents. Look through everything. Anything that you find among us that belongs to you, lay it out here at our feet. Put it out in the open. I will tell you, take it. Take it with my blessing. My intent's never been to take anything from you. And furthermore, remember, the one who it would be found with would be put to death. And it makes it very clear that for Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen him. He wouldn't have put his wife on the line. He wouldn't have sentenced her to death if he had known. Let me see if I told you everything. So the relatives that came with him, they would be the searchers, and they would be the judges that could say, yes, we know this is Lavan's, this is not Jacob's, so here it is. And again, when Jacob says, look through all my belongings, he was an open book. Look through it all. I'm not hiding anything from you. You're welcome to take anything back, which shows Jacob was not a thief. It was not in his character to steal. Keep that in mind when you think back to what he's always been judged for and called in through time, you know, even down to today, what's said of him and his character. Okay, so what happens? They're going on a search. Lavan himself is searching. He doesn't even just leave it for the men he brought with him. It says Lavan went into Jacob's tent. I have a feeling went in there first. I think he thought he was going to call up Jacob's bluff, and he goes into the tent. They weren't there. He goes into Leah's tent. They weren't there. He goes into Bilhah and Zilpah's tents, the two maids. They weren't there. He did not find them. Then he went out of Leah's tent. So he'd done Jacob, and he had done the two maids, and then he'd done Leah, and now he's headed into Rachel's tent. Uh-oh, can't you just see if Hollywood's doing this? You can hear the music, you know, the plot's thickening. Uh-oh, because we all know Rachel's got him, okay? So he goes into Rachel's tent, okay? Now, do you think Rachel's going to take this laying down? No. Oh, Dad, here they are.
She's going to take it sitting down.
She's going to take it sitting down, yes. Now, Rachel had taken the household gods and put them in the camel's saddle, and she sat on them. That's the furniture that when you see, if you ever see them riding on a camel caravan, it's the bags, you know, that they would have, that there would be the seat that you would sit on and the bags that would carry your goods, okay? So that was all like one big thing. Probably the saddle itself could kind of like open, and the gods were hidden in that. She closes up. She puts the rugs over it. That would have been like us putting a blanket on a horse. You know, she put the rugs over it, and then she sat down on it. So she's got it well covered. And she says, we read that Lavan felt through all the tent, but did not find them. So he looked all over the tent. Didn't find them there either. And Rachel, she, verse 35, said to her father, let my Lord, trying to, quote, show him some respect, let my Lord, not meaning the Lord, but just, you know, my father, don't let him be angry that I can't rise before you. I'm not getting up, Dad. Forgive me for that. The reason is a manner of women is upon me. So he let her sit. Basically, she's saying it's that time of month for me, and I'm achy. I can't get up. I just need to sit. And Laban let her. So he searched, but he did not find the household idols. Okay? Now, honestly, if she had confessed and said to Laban, I've got them, I'm the one that took them, he wouldn't have been content with that. He wouldn't have stopped with that. He would have blamed Jacob. He probably would have said, Rachel, Jacob put Rachel up to it. He's put her in danger, making her do something wrong. And so actually her protecting Jacob was the best thing of the situation that could happen, because he was innocent. So if Laban would have found him, would have accused him of theft, would have accused him of lying, who knows how ugly of a scene it could have gotten. Probably that's why God allowed this to succeed, because he could have helped Laban to find them. He could have, the story could have been written so differently. We're going to see that when Jacob's aware of them, he does not care to use them. He never uses them to divine from them, to get information from them. He never says, oh, well, since we've got them. No. In fact, he gets them buried as fast as he can. And we'll read about that when we get to chapter 35, so I won't expound on that now. But his intent, he was innocent. He knew nothing. And his intent never was. He never put Rachel up to it. He never gave her reason to think, oh, get the gods. No. He had no part of it. And we do know there are times that God has allowed a lie to keep a secret for worse circumstances. I'm going to point you to nothing short of the Holocaust, when people were hiding Jewish people in their homes, and they would lie about it. Had they told the truth, had it been pulled out of them, they would have lost their life and the Jew that they were hiding. So God did allow. There were times when God really did allow a lie to go. There was even the story of a family. They had little children, and they taught their little children to tell the truth. And you can't explain to a 5-year-old, and I don't know that the child was 5, but the child was very young. You can't explain to them at that age, don't, lie about this to the Gestapo. Don't tell, what's happening. So, I'm sure we're trying to help the child know what to do and what not to do, but the parents would be trying to protect the children. Well, sure enough, the Nazis broke into this home trying to find the Jews that were hidden, and what are they going to do? They're going to be easy on little ones? No, they're going to intimidate, get right in their face. So they got in the face of this little one that belonged to this family and said, where are the Jews? We know you're hiding the Jews. Tell us where the Jews are. And in her fear, she said, they're under the table. Well, they really were. There was a trap in the floor under the table. They were sitting there like they were having a meal, hoping that nobody moved the table. They wouldn't find the trap door that led to where they were hiding the Jews. She spoke the truth. They scoffed at her. They thought, oh, yeah, right, they're under the table, right here in plain view, sure. And so they went on. God even used her truth to hide what was happening. But there were plenty of other times that they literally said, we have no Jews. We're hiding no Jews. And they were hiding Jews. And God protected them and their lives, and they went on. Now we know times also that Corrie ten Boom's family was turned in and suffered consequences for what they did. So it's not an always. God judges each situation for His glory and for His purposes, and we're not here to question. We don't know why one lives and another does not.
Can I say one thing? When they showed the movie of the home that was hiding him, what's her name? She knew the Gestapo. He tried to warn her, but she wouldn't compromise. If she would have compromised, their whole family would have been saved. But she would not compromise. And
honestly, I don't think the family would have been saved. That's what she would be told, but they didn't.
Well, the guy he favored them because the father was a watch deal, but he really liked the family. And he warned them, but there was a spy going to door to door. He warned her all the way, and she said, I can't compromise. He warned her, but she wouldn't give in. Yeah. And in that process, that person did show up, and it took everybody.
Yeah.
So I think God would have winked at that if she would have just compromised, nobody else.
She had to go by how she felt the Lord wanted her to go, but yeah, I hear what you're saying, So, hard to say. We're not here to judge or to question. We just know God's ways are right. And God allowed Rachel to pull off this secret And Jacob doesn't even know for a while. When he finally finds out, you know, it's down the road. It's not right now. So, Jacob knows now that his tent's been searched, the handmaids have been searched, Leah's been searched, Rachel's been searched, everything's been searched, nothing's been found. The kinsmen, the brethren, the searchers who are to be the judges have brought nothing out and said, here's what is ours, okay? So, is Jacob taking this easily? No. I think he's had his fill. I think he bit his tongue many a time for 20 years when Laban cheated him, when Laban didn't do things right, you know, against his wives, against himself. And I think that behind these words, there's a whole lot of pent-up anger that comes flying out. Verse 36, then Yaakov became angry and contended. That means he argued with Laban. Yaakov said to Laban, what is my transgression? What is my sin that you have hotly pursued me? What have I done so bad that you've spent the last week coming after me the way you have? And he had to have been in hot pursuit to catch up. Though you have felt through all my goods, what have you found of all your household goods? Set it here before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, that they may decide between the two of us. And here comes the what's been pent up. These 20 years I've been with you. Your ewes, your lambs, your female goats, yeah, I should say female lambs, and your female goats have not miscarried, nor have I eaten the rams, the male goats, of your flocks. What is he telling them? He's saying, and by the way, if you have the words property or stuff or furniture, it's all the goods that they had. Jacob was challenging Laban to find anything among all the goods that he could put out, that he could say, here's why Laban had a right to do this. There was nothing. The just verdict was Jacob and his family are innocent. So now in verse 38, where it says that the ewes and the lambs have not miscarried. Okay, yeah, have not miscarried. Miscarriage would often happen, or even a failure to conceive, failure for the babies to develop in the wombs of the pregnant sheep. That was a frequent occurrence among careless shepherds. If the shepherd wasn't taking good care of the sheep, that would be a common result. So the fact that Laban's didn't miscarry, they didn't have the failure to bear. They bore. We know that Laban's flocks grew under Jacob's care. It showed that he had been a good, attending shepherd, that he had been helpful for Laban. And furthermore, he said, I didn't even eat the ones that I would have been allowed to eat. The male sheep were the ones that would be eaten. And he said, I didn't use any of yours. I didn't take my meal from your flock, even though that's what's the right of every shepherd. The shepherd, basically, they get, part of their wage would be food. Sometimes you get a meal on a job. It would be like that, okay? And Jacob said, I didn't even do that. Verse 39, that which was torn of beasts, I didn't bring to you. If a sheep or goat, you know, in the flock had been attacked by a wild animal, he didn't even bring that sheep or that goat to Laban. That was the right of a shepherd for hire. The shepherd could bring the torn animal and show the owner, hey, I was trying, I was there, this is what happened. Because showing that they had that torn animal, that they were there, showed that they were doing everything they could to protect the sheep. But, you know, you can't do it always. Sadly, you can't. I can imagine that wild animal that comes after one sheep, he defends that one sheep, but then here's all the others that are around, and that wild animal managed to get a sheep. And he said, even when that happened, I didn't bring it to you so that the loss was yours. I took the loss, and out of my flock, I replaced that one with one of mine, basically is what he's saying. I didn't let you suffer any kind of loss, Laban. You didn't suffer loss because of me being a careless shepherd. You didn't even suffer the loss that was out of my control. I did everything I could for you. I bore the loss myself. You required it of my hand, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. You didn't cut me any slack. If that animal went down, it didn't matter if it was day, it didn't matter if it was night. You accepted from me a replacement. You let me take the blame. You didn't rise up to the occasion and say, hey, I know you're doing the best you can. This wasn't your fault. It's on me. It's my loss. No, you took it from me. Verse 40, thus I was. By day the heat consumed me, the frost by night. That means even when it was hot, he was out there laboring and doing his best to protect the flock, take care of the flock, and do everything. Even at night when it was freezing cold, he was out there at night protecting the sheep, watching for the wild animals that would try to steal into the fold at night. He did everything he could. He says, my sleep fled from my eyes. I lost sleep over taking care of your flocks. I did everything. I went the extra mile is how we would say it today. So he tells him how he took care of all of that. Then he goes on and he says, in verse 41, these 20 years I've been in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters. I served you 6 years for your flock, and you changed my wages 10 times. He's bringing it up. Laban, you tried to cheat me 10 times. You're the one who changed it. You did everything, and I went along with it every single time. Verse 42, if the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac, Yitzhak, had not been for me, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. He's calling him out. He's saying, basically, if it wasn't for God, I would have come out of this 20 years with absolutely nothing. He's even figuring not even his wives, because remember, Laban probably would have dragged them back home. He would not have let them go on with Yaakov, but he's saying, my God, the God of my father, the God of my grandfather Abraham, the one that my father feared, reverential fear, he was the one that was for me. Surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God has seen my affliction. God has seen the toil of my hands. He rendered judgment last night. He's the one that pulled you up short, Laban. He's the one that told you, don't touch me. He's the one that is not allowing you to bring me to total, utter what, destruction? To, if I'm left with my life, that's it? No, God's the one that pulled you up short. My God is the one who has overruled. My God is the one who has looked over me, and he is still taking care of me to this moment, to this day. So verse 43, Laban's got to respond to Jacob. Jacob's called him out. Jacob's told the truth. And so Laban replies to Yaakov, the daughters are my daughters, and the children are my children, and the flocks are my flocks, and all that you see is mine. He's saying, all you got, Jacob, it came from me. My daughters came from me. That means that the children that they produced, that came from me, and even the flocks that you've got, they came from my flocks. So everything had its start from me. Whoa, what an arrogant man.
Yep.
And then he says, but what can I do this day to these, my daughters, or to the children whom they have borne? He's basically saying, but me? You think I could be so evil to my own daughters and my own grandchildren? How could you say such a thing? How could you call me out like that? That far be it from me. Not truth, but this is what he's trying to say. He's trying to tell Jacob, you should be grateful. It's everything you've got is because of me. Not admitting that it wasn't because of him. It was in spite of him. Because God had his hand on Jacob the whole time, the whole 20 years. And so instead of admitting truth, he goes on with this excuse. But then he's realizing once again, you know, he's the sneaky-minded one. He's realizing he's got to shift guilt away from himself, okay? So now let's do something about it. Let's quit arguing over whose it belongs to, whose it should be, where it came from, who's blessed you. We got to come up with, we got to do something here. So he comes up with this suggestion in verse 44. So now come, let us make a covenant, you and I. Let it be a witness between you and me. Okay, he uses the same word when God kept covenant with Abraham. He uses the same word, karut or karat. He is cutting covenant, or he wants to cut covenant with Jacob. We see that same Hebrew word with Abraham back in chapter 15 when the animals were cut in two, and God went through the path while Abraham was asleep because it was God who was going to do it all. So it's the same thing. That was the way that they made covenants then. There would be the killing of the animal, the cutting it in two, and basically saying if either of us break this covenant, that's what should happen to us. We should be cut in two. So that's what he's saying to do. Let's make that kind of covenant. Let's let it be a witness, a recorder. Let's record it. We're going to put it down. This is between us. Okay? So how does Jacob respond to that? He says, okay, let's do that. Verse 45, Yaakov took a stone and set it up as a pillar. Okay, that's like a memorial. He's going to make it formal. We're coming into covenant here together. We're going to make, what the covenant is between you and me. And here is exactly where it happened. I'm going to raise up a pillar right here so that we can always come back to this point and say it is right here that this was established between you and I. Jacob's going to meet him in that. And so as we go on, he took the stone set up as a pillar. In verse 46, Yaakov said to his kinsmen, to the men there, gather stones. So they took stones and they made a heap, and they ate there by the heap. They probably ate the animal that was sacrificed to make the covenant, the one that was cut in two. And that would be typical what they would do. They would have a meal together, sharing from what was slaughtered. So that's just how a covenant was made. So they've made this covenant. Lavan calls the place, and good grief. You can help me if you want. Jegar Sahudutha, I don't know. I honestly don't know how to say it. It is either Aramaic or is Chaldanic, the Chaldean language or the Aramaic language, okay? But we get it in Hebrew too. What verse? I'm in verse 47.
Okay.
Okay, so Laban calls it by the Aramaic name or the Chaldean name. Jacob calls it Galid. I can say that one. Jacob calls it Galid. They both mean heap of witness. So these stones here, this is a heap of witness. This is, to be the recording between us. They didn't have a courtroom, a judge. They didn't have the court reporter keeping the records. They couldn't take it to the county hall of records. They couldn't put a title deed. They couldn't, none of that we do today. This was the way they did it then. So they're both agreeing this is the marker. Now, they call it Galid. I'm going to just stop with that one. And Mitzvah, verse 49. For he said, may the Lord watch between you and me when we are absent one from another. I can't talk in English either. Mitzvah means watchtower. So this is a marker on the frontier in the hill country of Gilead that's standing there, and it was heaped up. It's not just one stone. They made a pillar here, and they said, this is a watchtower. This is to watch. This point is the point of contention for us. I stress this because to this day, there is jewelry. It's called the mitzvah coin, and it's a half and half. Yeah. And people take it, and they give half to a beloved and half to them. That when they're apart, they're half, and it's to, be together. It's supposed to be something nice, something sweet, something a boyfriend would give to a girlfriend or a husband to a wife. But that's not the original, okay? The original is that this is to watch between you and me when we're absent, when we're concealed from one another. Lavan saying, when I can't see you, this is going to be what's watching. And when you can't see me, this is going to be what's watching. If either one of us crosses this line, God can deal with us for it because we're breaking our covenant. So they're inviting God to be the watchtower. They're inviting God to keep them from strife between each other. God's going to guard this. This is going to be our boundary. It didn't stand for blessing. It didn't stand for fellowship. It didn't stand for communion. It stood rather as an armistice, a separation. It's a warning that there's a menace here. That this can, that if we don't abide by this, it's bloody. It's not good. So sorry folks who like the mitzvah coin. Use it to your own liking for how you mean it today, but here's your roots, okay? It would mean one of two things or both. If either cross the line, and they went on the other one's side, the other one had the right to shoot to kill. Okay? Hatfields and the McCoys, here's our line, you stay there, I'll stay here, we'll all be fine.
The only difference is they don't have guns, so let's just throw a rock.
Okay, they'll stone them to death, yeah. In other words, if you cross this line, you're going to need God's protection because you're a dead man, okay? Or at the very least, it would be just a reminder, a constant reminder that they were not to deal evilly with the other. They were to leave each other in their own sides of the world, so to speak. Whichever way kind of both goes together, but God watch between you and me. Even though I can't see, God's going to call you out because here's our divider. Okay? Now, Lavan takes it one step further with his mouth. Forgive me, but you can see I don't have love for him. I maybe having the name Rachel. I'm very thankful. Lavan was not my father. I had a loving father. But anyway, he takes it and he says, if you mistreat my daughters, hello, who mistreated the daughters in the past? Do we read one word of Yaakov mistreating Rachel or Leah? No, no. In fact, we even see that he came to love Leah, that she was unloved in the beginning, but we see a love that developed between them. But Lavan had already taken their dowry, had, everything we've said that he did to his daughters. He's the one that mistreated them. But here he is, being the father. If you mistreat my daughters, if you take wives besides my daughters, if you go marry others, although no man is with us, although there's no one, I won't see it, but God, he's witness between you and me. He'll see it.
He did see it.
Wow. God will know and God will judge you for it. That's what he's saying. Jacob had been forced into a bigamous relationship. He didn't go looking for two wives. He went looking for one wife. He wanted wifey Rachel, and if he'd gotten her in the beginning, Leah would never have been in the picture. And if the two girls weren't in it together, there wouldn't have been the contention between them and the two handmaids brought in. So it was not that Jacob was, oh, let's see how many wives I can get. Oh, one's not good enough, let me have two. Now two's not good enough, let me have three. Oh, I'm going for four. And Laban's saying, you're going to go for 5 and 6. I think Jacob had his hands full. I don't think he was looking. But anyway, that's Laban's attitude. And then the final clincher, the top of the heap, the stone, the top, whatever I should call it, is verse 51. Not only does he call out Jacob that if you do anything wrong to my daughters, you add more to your entourage, God's going to get you for it. Then he says to Yaakov in verse 51, behold this heap, and behold the pillar which I have set between you and me. He's taking credit for it. Who built that pillar? Jacob told his people, his kinsmen, build the pillar, okay? But Lavan's taking the, I did it. Unless, at best, he could be thinking because it was my idea, okay? Who knows? But all the way back up in verse 46, if you look, you'll see it was Jacob's people. It was their labor. But Lavan's taking the credit. He's the one, This heap, verse 42, this heap is a witness, the pillar is a witness that I will not pass by this heap to you for harm. Okay, I won't come do evil to you. The memorial pillar would always be the deterrent in keeping him from passing over or crossing over to harm Jacob. And in that same way, he's saying, you can't cross over to harm me. He was probably afraid Jacob would seek revenge on him. That, he knows he'd do that if he could. God's the one that stopped him, so he probably is putting that on Jacob and figures if he doesn't put the fear of God in Jacob here, Jacob will come after him one day and will seek revenge on him. So he puts it out there that this heap, this pillar, it's always going to keep you from coming across and harming me. Verse 53, the God of Abraham. And then he goes on. The God of Nahor. Nahor is Abraham's brother. The God of their father, who gave birth to Abraham and Nahor, was Terah. Remember, Terah was Abraham's father when he left Mesopotamia area to move to Canaan. Okay? their God, the God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us. Okay? That, and by the way, the fear, wherever we have the word fear, that's always reverential fear. Okay? I forget where it is, or it's coming up, one or the other. Oh, it's coming up. It's coming up right now. I thought I'd missed it. So Jacob swore by the fear of his father Yitzhak. Okay? Laban saying, I'm swearing it by the God of Abraham, by the God of Nahor, by the God of Terah. Here I am, I swear. Okay? And Jacob humbly is saying, the God that my father Yitzhak feared, had respect for, reverential awe for, that's who I'm swearing by. What he's denying is he knew the God of Abraham was his God. But remember, Abraham's family was in idolatry, that they had mixed it in. So very likely, and as we see later, in fact, I'll give you a verse that will show you, Nahor probably was doing a blend. He probably knew the God also that Abraham had come to know, but he mixed in idolatry with that. He worshipped both. Terah, we know, worshipped other gods. That's why Abraham was being called out to leave that behind, to cross over away from idolatry, to only worship the one true and living God, not to add him in. Let me prove my point that Nahor was known for this. Go to Joshua chapter 24 and verse 2. Joshua 24 and verse 2. Yahshua in the Hebrew means God saves. 24 and verse 2, Yahshua said to all the people, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel says. From ancient times your fathers lived beyond the Euphrates River. Remember, Yaakov crossed the Euphrates on his way home right now. And then he makes it specific. Your fathers that lived, namely Terah, the father of Abraham and the father of Nahor, and they served other gods. So who's Laban swearing by? All the gods. The true God maybe also, but he's including, I'm swearing it by these other gods. Yaakov was not willing to do that. He would have nothing to do with those other gods. He wouldn't claim them. He wouldn't swear by them. He left them totally out. And that's why he even dropped down from saying the God of my grandfather Abraham just to the God of Yitzhak, because Yitzhak was raised in a home that was not involved in idolatry, that taught him to know the one true and living God. So on the basis of that God, the one God that Yaakov respected and believed to be the God, is the one that he was willing to swear by, not by the gods that his ancestry had mixed into the line. And we see that mixture so many times in homes that are worshiping the one true and living God, but they bring in, maybe from their past, maybe you come out of an idolatrous background and you haven't totally separated. This is a good way to wake up and realize, hey, I need to get rid of everything except the one true and living God. And that can be any kind. That can be from something tangible that you can handle and look to, or something that you do. I don't know how to put it without spelling it out more specifically. Maybe I should just step on toes, okay? I'm not saying it against a people, but in the background of Catholicism is a lot of mixture.
Amen.
And that's what I'm saying. There are those that I've known that are believers that actually had a little Buddha statue in their home. They weren't worshiping it, but they had it in their home. Get it out, folks. Purify your home. Let your home be sacred to the one true and living God, and don't let anything else be a part of it. Don't let there be a door for Satan to creep in and creep through. That's what I'm trying to say. And that's what I think Yaakov was really stressing. He wasn't willing to even give Lavan a chance to say that you're swearing by my gods too. He's like, nope, I'm not even going there. This is who I'm swearing by. And that shows us how Yaakov was never intending to use the idols. He didn't know that Rachel had them. When he finds out that they have them, he buries them. That's the best way he could do to get rid of them and not allow them to fall into others' hands. He just got rid of him. That's what he's trying to do. And I take from that example his faith and where he was and why he was exonerated, because he did put himself and his family into the hands of the one true and living God, the one that he swore at Beit El, if you take me and bring me back safely, I'm going to honor you. I'm going to tithe to you. I'm going to worship you. I'm going to serve you. We'll get into all of that. I just saw the clock. I can't believe it took me this long to get through the story, but we want to see it in its detail. So let me finish up this chapter and we'll find out a couple of our questions that I asked on the text about today's class. We're going to have to park those till next week. So you'll want to come back and get the answers. I'll get you there in a moment. Yaakov is sworn by his father Yitzhak, verse 54. Then Yaakov, Jacob, offered a sacrifice on the mountain. Okay, not the sacrifice that was making the covenant. Now Jacob on his own is offering a sacrifice to the one true and living God. He called his kinsmen to the meal, his brethren, those who were with him. He calls them to the meal. They ate the meal and they spent the night on the mountain. So this battle, if it took place in the morning, it was an all-day event. By the time they had sacrificed an animal to make the covenant, made that pillar, made this division between them. Okay, what I want to bring out that we see in picture form here is beautiful. The covenant of, quote, peace that was proposed, okay, starting with verse 44. It was ratified by a sacrifice, and it was commemorated by a feast. Remember, they ate that animal that was sacrificed to make the covenant, to cut the covenant between Lavan and Yaakov. And that's a type for us. We see that God entered into the covenant of peace for sinful man before the foundation of the world. Okay, he made that covenant before the foundation of the world. That covenant was ratified by the sacrifice of Yeshua on the cross. And then we commemorate it today by the Lord's Supper. That's our meal. So the sacrifice that Yaakov makes is a picture of the sacrifice of Yeshua that is the sacrifice for us, and we commemorate it. We have the meal together afterward by taking the Lord's Supper, by taking the what should be unleavened bread, because that's what's a picture of our Messiah, sinless, sacrificial Lamb of God, and taking the juice, the cup that Yeshua said from the Passover meal, the third cup, the cup of redemption. This is my blood, which is shed for you. I've given it to you for the remission of your sins. That's what we're doing when we take communion. We're ratifying, well, it's being ratified by his sacrifice. We're commemorating it the same way that's what Yaakov did here. Just a beautiful picture, I think. So, and then finishing it up real quickly, verse 53. Early in the morning, Lavan arose, kissed his sons and his daughters, grandsons, okay, and his daughters, blessed them, and then Lavan departed and returned to his place. Okay, we never read that he apologized to Jacob. He didn't apologize to his daughters. He just leaves. Now, he does leave with a note of affection. He kissed them goodbye, okay? At least it was a better note than if they'd had a showdown back in Padanaram, okay? But he's never seen again in Scripture. It's the last that we hear of Lavan, and Lavan is a picture of the world. Okay, Jacob had needed to be freed from the world in order to wholeheartedly live under the God of his fathers. So rather than seeking out, how am I going to say this? Jacob didn't try to exonerate himself. He allowed this covenant to come in with Lavan, and he just establishes, by my God, I will keep my word. And he honors God. Lavan wanted the covenant that Jacob had with his God. He wanted the blessing of it. That's why he didn't want to let go of Jacob, because he knew, I'm blessed because of you. He said that. When Jacob said, hey, I need to go, it's time to go and build my house, he said, I know I'm blessed because of you. What can I do to keep you? Name your wages. And that's when the next 6 years started with all of that. So Laban, at best, you can say, is semi-religious. He mixed religion with his own attitude and way of being. He was self-worshiping, and what he wanted, he lost completely. Yaakov is now out of his life. The blessing of God is going with Yaakov. He is going to go back basically to nothing, and we never hear from him again. The world does not bless us. The world does not give us what we need or what we desire. That should all be coming from our relationship with our God, looking to him. And so thankful, as we end on this note, so thankful that God cut covenant with us. And what was cut was his very own son, God himself in human form, that we might have that relationship with him. And it's memorialized, is commemorated, not by, you know, I knew that was coming, not by a watch out, you know, warning, if you cross this line, God will deal with you. But we commemorate it by coming together and sharing in the Lord's Supper, remembering what he had done. That is all him. It's his body, it's his blood that was shed for us. And in that, we have covenant relationship with our God. So what a perfect note to end on.
You know what is really sad is the girl's father, no fear of God that showed the vision, still no fear of anything.
He puts up his hand and pledges by those false gods still. You know, yes. Yeah, we don't see any change in Lavan, any correction, any humbleness. No. No, we just see, he's used to, when we don't have class, the podium gets flipped over, and it's a hole in there, and I put a blanket in there, and Max loves it. So he's probably saying, Mom, you got my bed. Now, mind you, he's not out homeless. He's got plenty of other places to go. But anyway, it just, yeah, we don't see anything in Lavan that shows any kind of a heart toward God or correcting, being corrected. It's just, he was all about himself. And even sadly, he loses out on having his family around. You know, his daughters and his grandchildren, he never sees them. You know, he goes on. But the godly line has to be separate from the worldly line. And sometimes there is a cost in a way that we have to justify. Is this where I need to be and put my family? Or do I need to cut ties and be just with my Lord and true to my Lord? And the Lord will fill all that's in our heart and all that we need. So we will pick it up next week. We're going to find out that Yaakov hasn't been traveling alone. Who does that mean joined him? That he hasn't been traveling alone. We'll look at that. We'll look at what else did I say. I really thought we'd travel a lot faster because I thought story goes faster than when we're doing doctrinal depth, but as I put it out here, next week we will answer, oh yes, okay. So who's going to meet Yaakov now? Who shows up and actually doesn't just show up, but we find out that it's been on the scene. There's another showdown. There's a showdown coming between Yaakov and Esau. What's going to happen? Where does Yaakov turn for help this time? And what does he do with his circumstances? Again, food for us. What do we do in our world of circumstances when they seem to be coming against us? Where do we turn? So we can learn from it too. But next week, we've got more, quote, ground to cover, everybody.
I need more.
You do, but you don't. I don't have a page of references yet because we're not having a cross-reference. We're just telling a story. So you will get, but you'll see a big gap in where it ended. So yes, I am aware that you're right up to the end, but I don't have a lot of other references to send you off to. So if I do any, I will make clear to repeat a couple of different times to make sure you get it.
It was really good.
It is interesting. We see in other people's lives and we can relate. You know, object lessons are great for us. That's why if you want to get through to somebody who football is their big deal, then make a play. Talk to them about goals and, you know, make it relate. Whatever they're into, if you find a way to relate it to them. Well, we can relate to human life, can we not? We can relate to family. We can relate to all of this and be encouraged that God was looking out for Yaakov. It didn't mean he did everything right, but he had his heart right to God. He allowed God to correct him. He followed God, And God did make promises, and God kept his promises. God's made promises to each and every one of us. Not one word of our God has ever failed. Not one word will ever fail. So, praise God. He did it all. He made the whole covenant himself, and he's taking us and keeping us all the way through. And I can guarantee you he will till the moment you find yourself in his home, which is now your home. Let's close in prayer. We praise you, the God of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, the one true and living God, the God of Israel. Thank you for being faithful. Thank you for being true. Thank you for being the way, the truth, and life, and that you give it to all who come to you seeking for it. Lord, we thank you, those of us who have you in our heart, that we have this relationship that was ratified by your sacrifice, and we commemorate it as we remember what you have done for us. How we thank you and we praise you. May we now walk in that power of that new life that you've granted us, and may we be pleasing to you, quick to move at your correction, and strong to withstand whatever the enemy throws at us, because with you we are victor. With you we do not fear. We know that we fear nothing that man can do to us, because we're in the hands of our living God, and even if our life is taken, we thank you that they cannot separate us from your love, and it will only usher us all the sooner into your presence. And we praise you for our future, the glorious future of being with you forever. Thank you, Lord. In your holy name we pray, with hearts full of thanksgiving. Amen and amen. Amen. Okay, sorry I went a little long, but I had to get it all in. I forgot to tell you up front also, Rhonda is okay, but her daughter Kristen is moving because of a job to Oregon, and they're involved with all that, so keep the family in prayer through that, but all is good. So suddenly remembered, because usually she has to go off and miss the end, and it reminded me that I told her I'd share and have you all praying for Kristen's safety, and it's an adjustment. First time that she'll be living far away from home and settling down in this new work. So, Lord, be with the family. Open the mics, comments, questions,